Oh, g'day champions. Finally getting into this SMF. Sound Machine Factory is the company name. 35 watt, class A. No, it's not. Spoiler alert. I did an assessment of this in the live stream. It's taken me ages to get back to it, but here we are. We're going to do a recap because a bit of hum, partially from a lot of ripple on the B+, but also in standby because they made the transformers touch each other. Yay! Almost. There's like a millimetre between them. It should have been at least, I don't know, 6 inches away or something. But anyway, this company's long defunct. So let's just say there might be a good reason for that. Anyway, there's lots of revisions. I don't know if these are from factory or after the fact, but looking at this arrangement here with these resistors, I think these big power resistors here, the 10 watters, I think all of that's factory because the traces on the board just don't seem to make sense. You've got sort of these standoff things here, but then there's ones that have been cut short, and there's pads there that look like they've been soldered to at some point, so possibly hardwired to the socket from there, because there's no corresponding pads on the other board where that header would continue, and that's the case over here as well. There's just like one pin there, and another bunch down there that aren't connected to anything. Oh, you got one there going to the control grid. But you got one cathode resistor there for this valve, EL34, and you got one cathode resistor down there for that valve. You've got one cap there in parallel with this, and one cap over there by its lonesome for this valve. So really weird layout. There's no position on the board anywhere for this one. However, on the board it says 120 ohm 10 watt, which would imply that that would be a resistor shared between the two EL34s. But there's no trace on this board that would correspond to linking up the two valve sockets. So I don't know, it's really weird. It's like they've used up boards from another design or something. I don't know the backstory, but all of this hodgepodge stuff for that reason looks like it's from the factory. Now down here we've got some really bad soldering. It doesn't look like there used to be a header there. I think it was always soldered, but I think this has been reworked multiple times by various people. The cathode bypass caps for the EL34s have been replaced at some point. You can see that one's floating up in midair, wobbling around. This is typical of the work that we see in Sydney at least. Now it's a bit hard to make out here because everything's green, but you can see the junction between the two boards is a bit of a gap there. And then the whole board twists, so that header down there, it's like it wasn't long enough or it was positioned too far back on the board. There's no pins really visible on the other side there. They're barely making it through the board, and the whole board's twisted for it to meet. So that's under great pressure there. Not a good idea because that's a potential for cracking or ripping off the solder pads. Now in regards to the actual quality of the boards, they're reasonably high quality, like thick copper, 2mm thick board, through hole plated, decent sized pads, so good marks there. They've used the right footprints, but the layout's not great. There's a lot of filtering in this one, lots of different nodes. You've got them all snaking off to the relevant input valves there, and filtering for each node. There's a small DC supply down there which supplies the relay, does the channel switching, as well as it's got a funky LED panel on the front there. Apparently that's got some microcontroller light show, zoom, go around in circles kind of deal. And in the head here you've got a little like 4-inch speaker which has got a broken wire. It's also got a capacitor across it, so that would be limiting the top end, smoothing it off a bit. This customer said he doesn't mind the sound of that speaker. Now, because it's got a cap across it, I'm starting to think that maybe he thinks his amp's too bright, and he just likes the fact that this speaker has a cap across it, which is naturally filtering the top end a bit. We've got a reverb tank in there as well. I've got to trace out the schematic because there's nothing online. I contacted one of the builders and no response. So this is the main reason it came in for repair, I suspect. One of the valves has lost, I'm not sure it's lost vacuum, because the getter's not just white, it's gone, and you've got flaky white stuff everywhere. I think this valve cooked itself, went short circuit, and then it's off gassed a lot of materials from from the cathode there, and or yeah, whatever. That looks like cathode coating to me, scattered on the inside of the glass there like a snow globe. So I reckon it's gone really gassy because something's gone short, off gassed a lot, and that's smashed together. But you can see that on the base there, it's cooked. Now that's a Bugera valve. I doubt that'll be stock, but we know it's buggered. And there's the other one, although it hasn't completely destroyed the getter flash there. You can see the base has gotten very hot on this one too. Now I have fired this one up on the Variac with some Piz vanes, EL34s, and it was sounding good, but I only had the Variac up to about 200 volts and we were hitting 110%. So I think that given the plate voltage and those cathode resistors, that's probably what led to the demise of these EL34s. So what I want to do is either change the value of both of these or go back to figuring out how to wire it up so we're just using this one here and mount a chassis mounted resistor down there that's going to dissipate the heat better, a 25 watter. Probably start around the 180, 200 ohm mark and go from there. But being mounted on the chassis means we can relatively easily replace that without fear of destroying traces and stuff. Now it's a bit of an odd construction. You've got all the valves pointing sideways. I've taken them all out. I'm in a very big hurry this week, so this video is just off the cuff. I've removed it. I've disconnected some wires so I can get to the bottom, and we can work on this from below. So that's the way we're going to do it. Now regarding the voicing changes, I have my suspicions that maybe the customer was using it while those valves were on the way out, or this master doesn't have a great taper. It only allows a little bit of leakage, but the leakage comes through up to, I don't know what would be like. This is a switch pot, by the way. That's your channel switching. It's normally the cruise, which is the clean, and then you turn up the master until it clicks, and then it switches to the other channel. Now there's your gain, there's your master. This is a bit of a layout nightmare. You can't really, you turn one knob and you bump the others. Everything's really close together. You sort of got to just tweak it a little bit at a time, or you bump other stuff. It's a little bit cramped, and layout wise, to try and figure out, you know, in the dark what's going on, it's a bit of a you got some pretty low contrast there, and you got stuff under the knobs, and yeah, I don't know. You got this crazy font here, which is not the easiest to read if the light's not great. So the taper of the master, once you click it on, it just gives like leakage, but relatively high level leakage, until you get to about there, and then it actually starts letting signal through. So the leakage is really low quality, like real tinny and crap. I wonder if he's trying to use it in this region here, and it's sounding like that as a result, because once you go past there, it starts to sound pretty good, providing you have the bright control, which I guess is a presence. I haven't traced it out, but have that, you know, about there or below halfway anyway. So I've got to get on the customer and find out at what level he uses it. And if it's consistently bad, as he says, all the way, because to my ears it doesn't sound too bad, or nowhere near as bad as he describes it anyway. So champions, I'm just going to battle on with this one and make a bunch of decisions and have a listen, go from there, fine tune if we need to. But I want to get on the customer, find out some more information first, and hopefully I'll have some time when it's finished to give you some sound samples and show you the fancy lights on the front panel and all that jazz. But until then, take it squeezy.